Fastest growing, the most starved, why Black women entrepreneurs are winning at everything except getting funded. I want to tell you about someone who's changing the world one conversation, one barrier broken, one woman empowered at a time. Melissa Brown is not just an advocate for Black women entrepreneurs, she is a force of nature. She's a visionary, a truth teller, a bridge builder who refused to let systemic injustice have the last word. Through her research, her advocacy, and her relentless commitment to economic equity, Melissa is dismantling the narratives that have kept Black women on the margins of entrepreneurship, even as they lead the charge in business creation. She is making the world better, not with empty promises, but with data, with strategy, with community, and with an unapologetic demand for justice. And what she shared with me recently, it shook me. It challenged everything I thought I knew about success, growth, and opportunity in America. And today I want to share it with you. Here's what we celebrate: Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the United States. We see the headlines, we share the social media posts, we applaud the hustle, we honor the grind. We love a good success story, and we should, because Black women are doing something extraordinary. They are launching businesses at rates that outpace every other demographic. They are innovating, they are creating, they are building empires from scratch, often with nothing but a dream, a laptop, and an unshakable belief that they deserve more. But here's what Melissa Brown helped me see, and here's what should stop all of us in our tracks. Despite being the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, Black women owned businesses consistently generate lower average revenues and face more significant barriers to funding than any other demographic. Let that sink in. The fastest growing, yet the most underfunded, the most ambitious, yet the most under resourced, the most innovative, yet the most overlooked. Growth does not equal opportunity. Expansion does not equal equity. And visibility does not equal access. This is the uncomfortable, disruptive, infuriating truth that Melissa Brown laid bare, and it's a truth we cannot afford to ignore. We live in a world that loves to celebrate Black women entrepreneurs. We love the story. We love the resilience. We love the narrative of triumph over adversity. We love the Instagram posts, the magazine covers, the award ceremonies, but we don't love them enough to fund them. We don't love them enough to open doors. We don't love them enough to dismantle the systems that keep their businesses small, struggling and starving for capital. So the question becomes, what does growth really mean if the ground beneath you is uneven? What does ambition really mean if the ladder you're climbing is missing rungs? What does success really mean if you're running twice as fast just to stay in place? Let me tell you about Tiffany Vine. Tiffany is the owner of Madison Street Building Design Group, and she did something most people told her she couldn't do. She walked away from the security of a 9 to 5 job and launched her own business in one of the most male dominated, most unwelcoming, most exclusionary industries in America: construction. Tiffany is a first generation college graduate. She is a Black woman, and she entered a field where she saw almost no one who looked like her. The stereotypes were loud, the representation was non existent, the barriers were real, the doubt was everywhere, from the industry, from society, and sometimes even from herself. But Tiffany had something else. She had a lifelong passion for design that started when she was a child, a passion that society told her didn't belong to her, a passion that was delayed, deferred, and dismissed until she decided it was time, until she decided that her dream mattered more than anyone else's limitations. In 2019, Tiffany launched her company, and she didn't just start a business, she started a movement. She challenged the perception of who belongs in construction. She carved out space where there was none. She used her unique perspective, her lived experience as a Black woman to build something that didn't just serve her, it served her community. It paved the way for others. It shifted the narrative. It opened doors that had been locked for generations. Tiffany's story is one of courage, yes, but it's also a story of what happens when we refuse to accept the limitations others place on us, when we leverage our differences as strengths, when we build not in spite of who we are, but because of who we are, when we decide that our presence in a space is not a favor, it's a right. Now, let me tell you about Leslie Frello. Leslie is the founder of the Wine Concierge, and like Tiffany, she left her corporate job to pursue something that mattered to her, something that felt like purpose, not just a paycheck. But Leslie entered an industry with even less Black representation than construction, the wine industry, an industry steeped in tradition, exclusivity, and gatekeeping, an industry where Black faces are rare, Black voices are quieter, and Black businesses are almost invisible. But Leslie saw a gap. She saw an opportunity. She saw a market that was underserved and underrepresented, and she decided to fill it. She decided that her passion for wine, her knowledge, her perspective deserved to take up space in an industry that had never made room for her. But here's the thing: Leslie didn't have venture capital knocking on her door. She didn't have investors lining up to fund her vision. She didn't have a network of wealthy mentors ready to write checks. What she had was a COVID relief loan, a loan meant to help businesses survive a pandemic, a loan meant to keep the lights on. And Leslie used that loan to turn her side hustle into a full time mission driven business. Today, the Wine Concierge supports small wine producers, it champions diversity, it creates opportunities for other minority owned businesses. Leslie didn't just build a brand, she built an ecosystem. She elevated the profile of Black professionals in an industry that had largely ignored them. And she did it without the resources, the networks, or the access that so many others take for granted. She did it with grit, with vision, with community, and with a refusal to wait for permission. Leslie's story is a testament to innovation, to persistence, to the power of seeing what others miss and building what others won't. But it's also a reminder of how much harder Black women have to work to access the same opportunities, the same capital, the same support that others receive without question, without struggle, without having to prove themselves over and over again. And then there's the Black Women's Expo, known as BWE Next. This is not just an event, this is a lifeline. This is a sanctuary. This is a correction to a system that has failed Black women for far too long. The expo was founded to address a critical gap: the lack of access to mainstream business networks, mentorship, and exposure for Black women entrepreneurs. Every year, thousands of Black women come together at this expo to connect, to learn, to showcase their businesses, to find their people, to breathe, to be seen, to be celebrated, to be supported in ways the mainstream business world has refused to support them. The expo offers seminars, workshops, and a marketplace for small business exhibitors. It creates visibility, it fosters partnerships, it provides resources that help women scale their ventures, and the impact is real, tangible, transformative. Participants report increased business visibility, they form new partnerships, they access resources they didn't even know existed. They leave with hope, with strategy, with a renewed sense of possibility. The Black Women's Expo has created a sustainable ecosystem that empowers Black women entrepreneurs year after year. It has become a movement, a community, a home. But here's what Melissa Brown wants us to understand: the fact that this expo exists, the fact that it's necessary, the fact that it's thriving tells us something important, something we cannot ignore. It tells us that mainstream business networks are failing and weighing Black women. It tells us that the traditional pathways to mentorship, funding, and exposure are closed, or at least They're not open wide enough. The Black Women's Expo is not just a celebration, it's a correction. It's a response to a system that has excluded, overlooked, and undervalued Black women for far too long. It's a declaration that if the doors won't open, we'll build our own. So, what do we take away from all of this? What did Melissa Brown teach me that I want you to remember? What are the truths we must carry forward? First, entrepreneurial growth among Black women is unmatched, but revenue and funding disparities remain stark. The barriers are systemic, they are embedded in how capital flows, in who gets access to networks, in who is seen as credible, as investable, as worthy. We cannot celebrate growth without addressing the structures that limit it. We cannot applaud ambition without dismantling the systems that starve it. We cannot post about Black girl magic without funding Black girl businesses. Second, access to community, mentorship, and targeted resources can significantly impact business outcomes and professional growth. Tiffany found her people. Leslie built her network. The women at the Black Women's Expo discovered that they were not alone. Community is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the difference between surviving and thriving. It is the bridge between a dream and a reality. And when Black women have access to spaces that see them, support them, and invest in them, they don't just succeed, they transform entire industries, they shift economies, they change lives. Third, persistence and innovation are critical. Despite higher failure rates, despite structural barriers, despite being told no more times than they can count, Black entrepreneurs who leverage unique market insights and community support are making measurable impacts in their industries and communities. They are not waiting for permission. They are not waiting for the system to change. They are building anyway. They are innovating anyway. They are creating pathways for themselves and for those who will come after them. And that is power. That is legacy. That is revolution. But here's where I want to challenge you. Here's where I want to disrupt your thinking. Here's where I want to call you into action. This is not just about Black women. This is about all of us. Because when we allow systems to underfund, undervalue, and overlook an entire demographic of entrepreneurs, we all lose. We lose innovation. We lose economic growth. We lose the brilliance, the creativity, the solutions that Black women bring to the table. We lose the businesses that could employ thousands. We lose the products and services that could change industries. We lose the wealth that could transform communities for generations. So here's my question for you, and I want you to sit with it. I want you to feel the weight of it. I want you to let it challenge you, provoke you, and move you to action. How will you leverage your unique experiences, your networks, your resources, your privilege, your platform to not only advance your own journey, but to break down barriers and create new opportunities for others in your community? Because this is not just about individual success, this is about collective liberation. This is about using what you have, your voice, your platform, your resources, your networks, your capital, to open doors that have been closed, to fund businesses that have been overlooked, to mentor women who have been told they don't belong, to invest in dreams that have been dismissed, to amplify voices that have been silenced. Melissa Brown is doing that work. Tiffany Vini is doing that work. Leslie Frello is doing that work. The Black Women's Expo is doing that work. And now it's our turn. The fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America should also be the most funded, the most supported, the most celebrated. And until that happens, until the gap closes, until the barriers fall, until the system shifts, we have work to do, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Not just for today, but for the generations coming behind us. So I'm asking you, what will you do? Will you invest? Will you mentor? Will you open a door? Will you share a resource? Will you amplify a voice? Will you challenge a system? Will you fund a dream? Because the truth is, change doesn't happen when we wait for someone else to do it. Change happens when we decide that we are the ones we've been waiting for. Change happens when we stop celebrating Black women entrepreneurs from a distance and start supporting them up close. Change happens when we turn our admiration into action, our applause into investment, our words into wealth. That's the challenge. That's the call. That's the disruption. And that's how we step into a new era, not by doing less, but by doing what matters most together